This is TWiT. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, and there was a little clam bake in the West Village yesterday.
There was.
Everybody who was anybody, including Bradley Cooper and his baby, were there.
Sure.
It sounds like a
bunch
joke.
of nobodies were there too, by the way. But
yeah, I brought a baby to a Surface event.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all lead weird lives, I guess, in some way.
So, you know, the only thing I know, because I followed your tweets, was I saw that picture, and then I saw that Panos Panay came up to Paul and took your Surface. What was that all about?
I don't know. He likes to work the crowd.
Did he give it back?
It's a little different at a tech event than it is at like a comedy club or whatever, but in this case, he kind of just pinched my laptop shut and he walked away with it.
And then?
He talked about, you know, so
was there a reason to do this?
Yeah, he usually does something like this, right? Okay. So his whole point, and I think this this ties into my S-mode joke from, or not S-mode, S-year joke from earlier, is they really didn't have anything new from a hardware perspective that was major. I mean, there were headphones, obviously, but so they've updated the internals. They've kind of gone forward with the computers they had from last time around. And I think what he was trying to push was this notion that that's what Surface is all about. The machine gets out of the way. You don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. We're not talking about speeds and feeds and blah, blah, blah. We're talking about the kind of touchy-feely emotional side of this where it's about the thing you're doing on the device. We don't worry about that other stuff. And which is a cute way of saying we don't have anything new to show you because, you know, so
well, they didn't even stream this event, right?
Yeah, why not?
It wasn't live stream. I think because it was a minor event.
Oh.
I completely disagree with this decision. I think they should have streamed it. We have both heard from hundreds of people who wanted to watch this thing.
We would have had a live coverage.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. And there was some neat Windows 10 stuff in there, some neat Office stuff. I think they have a good story to tell.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to...
The other reason I heard from a couple of people they decided not to do it. So they did a lot of things really differently with this announcement. For one thing, it started at 4 p.m. Eastern, even though it was in New York. That was weird, right? And they also didn't stream it. It was kind of a low-key event. Like there was 1 hour of kind of a basic keynote with Panos and Yusuf Mehdi and a couple demos, and that was it. And then we all got to go into this room where we could check out the new devices. So it wasn't really something that would have lended itself really well to streaming. I mean, you could have streamed the original keynote, I guess, but I think they were also trying to differentiate their approach from, like, say, how Apple does an announcement or how Google does an announcement, in that it wasn't some big bang, like, look at this beautiful hardware. It wasn't like that, right?
But it was like that. See, that's the thing.
I don't feel like it was.
It was, well, first of all, it was in a small venue. Like the Apple event is held at, there's 1,000 people or 2,000, whatever it is. It's a splashy multimedia kind of thing. But what Apple announced for new iPhones was no better or worse than what Microsoft announced for new Surface PCs, if you want to compare them to the previous generation. I feel that the level of news or whatever you want to call this was absolutely on the same level. I agree. I mean, I understand that they probably felt like they're not going to get the same kind of glowing, overly positive press coverage that Apple always gets. I think they could have handled it the same way, honestly. I think it would have been, I think it warranted it. It reminds me of the, Surface Pro, the 2017 version. They didn't call it 5 because we don't feel like we added enough to call it 5. Well, you felt like you added enough to call this one 6. Last year I made the argument that this was 5. There's absolutely enough to warrant it.
Leo. So I don't know. You probably caught that, but like last year when they announced the Surface Pro, the newest one, it was supposed to be the 5, and instead they just called it Surface Pro with no number.
But it turns out it was.
Yeah, it turns out we're going back to having numbers.
It always
now.
was
5. Well, did you see that we're now going to call Wi-Fi instead of 802.11n and 802.11ac, we're going to call it 802.11.4 and Wi-Fi 5? Yeah.
What?
No, I did not see this.
Yeah, because it confuses people.
Okay.
So, and I wish Apple would realize this.
Simple version numbers.
Just do numbers.
Yeah. Numbers are so good.
10S Max. What is that?
No.
So
no.
The big thing, though, I think there was. Look, we'll go through all this stuff. Honestly, in many, we're fixated on hardware, and I don't just mean the three of us or whatever. I mean our little community and the broader community of personal technology fans or whatever is really fixated on hardware. So we're going to beat this to death. But there was some very interesting software stuff going on too that we will absolutely get to. But like a lot of other company stuff, all this stuff started leaking in the days and weeks before this event, and there were some rumors we had heard that didn't make any sense, right? That Microsoft
we didn't even believe them. We were talking among ourselves, and I'm like, "Do you think it's going to be called the Surface Pro 6?" And Paul's like, "No." I'm like, "No, it's definitely not."
Well, that one I mean, that one I didn't care about too much. But I mean, the USB-C thing didn't make any sense. They've done it on Pro, which on Book, which is the highest end one they have. They've done it on Surface Go, which is the lowest end one. I mean, obviously, they're going to fill in the product line. And here's the logic to it, by the way. This isn't about necessarily or just about being forward-leaning or being modern or that literally the rest of the industry has done it. And blah. It's not about that stuff. I actually don't want them to replace the USB-C 3 port on those devices with a USB-C port. But what is on those devices is a mini display port.
Right.
You need to replace that with it. That's what they did on the Surface Book 2. It's the right decision. For the most part, you're still going to use a dongle. You know, you can go buy a cable that ends in mini DisplayPort and goes to whatever it goes to, HDMI. You're still buying a special thing. You know, the thing you're going to these days is HDMI. For the most part, I know there are exceptions. Relax, pedantics. But you're basically using a dongle anyway. You might as well use a port that, by the way, can also power the device. That can also be used as data. That can, with a dongle, work with any USB accessory. Those are three things that Mini DisplayPort cannot do. It makes no sense not to have done that.
Okay, I want to throw something in. So I, going into this event, had heard from a couple people who said they saw the Surface Pro 6 and the Surface Laptop 2, and they said they had USB-C.
Right.
So what I think happened is they have done this. Like, there are models that have these already.
Yep.
And instead of coming out with them now, they were like, you know what? We're going to have to change a lot of innards of the device and the chassis maybe if we switch now to USB-C on these. So let's do it in the next generation. So,
by the way, add to that the rumors about a version of Surface Pro where the corners were curved more like the Surface Go. Probably also true. Why wouldn't you want this device to look even more like the newest member of the family, right? And this goes back to what I said again. I'm going to keep beating this one to death. The notion of this being an S year. I think ultimately what they did was they looked at this and said, look, the big thing here is the internals. We're going to 8th gen finally, quad-core processing. The performance is going to be way up. Let's just make that the thing. There are people that haven't bought these devices because they're still the only machines in the market with dual-core processors in this price range. Everyone else has gone quad-core. Let's satisfy that demand and then do that bigger thing that you were just talking about. I really think that is what happened. That
Me too.
There were plans for this bigger step, and it's like, you know what? That isn't really what's important right now. And on that note, for all of the complaints I just made about USB-C, I'm actually okay with it because the thing is, I brought a Surface laptop to the device. It has one USB port on it. I never plugged anything into it. You know, for all of the complaining, like it's easy, I think, as a tech enthusiast, like I am, and I think a lot of people listening to this are, I don't really need this stuff all that much, you know?
Right.
So I could kind of lay out the logic of why what they did is wrong. But the reality is there is something special about these devices. It's true of Surface Pro. It's true of Surface Laptop. It's true of Surface Book too, although the design is still goofy and kind of bland to me. But as far as the performance and the functionality, it's you know, it's right there, obviously. And I think that was half an hour of what he was talking about. It was kind of you know, waving his hands like, don't worry about the specs. It's this other thing that's kind of special about these devices. And I have to say, I think he makes a good point.